David Freedman. David has been working in publishing for 10 years when he saw a need for a new streamlined approach to revenues. He was introduced to Chris Stark and Freestar was born. David now spends most of his time talking passionately to new partners about Freestar's product suite. David grew up outside Philadelphia and spends his free time playing with his dog Philly, hiking, and passionately cheering on all Philadelphia sports teams. Ladies and gentlemen, David Freedman. Kurt Donnell, you heard about his hole-in-one. So Kurt Donnell currently serves as president of Freestar and has a background in both business development and law. Before Freestar, he was the EVP of Corporate Development and General Counsel for Yoga Works, where he saw the company through its IPO, and prior to, he led She Knows Media through several successful acquisitions. Before entering the digital space, he was a corporate attorney with AM Law 100, Jones Day, and Bellar Spar. Ladies and gentlemen, Kurt Donnell. So I'd like to do this a little bit different. Kurt is an attorney, and I'd like for him to do a deposition with his colleague David and find out what he knows, how he knows it, and what's he going to do with it. So would you do that for us?
Absolutely. We'll mix this up. We get interviewed together a lot. I get to interview you today. This is good.
It's gonna be different.
So we'll start this off. Most people probably have no idea what we do. I think our moms don't know what we do. So would you kick us off and explain it?
Sure. Well, first off, apologies that we're keeping you between happy hours, so hopefully this is gonna be good. But is this working? Is this good? The Freestar, we basically help publishers monetize their web traffic. Every time you see an ad on the internet, an entire auction is happening in milliseconds behind the scenes, and our job is to really come in, put pressure on that auction, and drive up the price of each advertising impression for the publisher. Most of the industry is really geared around driving everything towards the advertiser, and that really hurts the publisher. So we are the publisher's advocate, and our motto is publisher first.
How many clients do you work with, David?
We have 300 websites right now.
That's good. And how many impressions do you see a month typically?
We serve 10 billion impressions, and we're reaching 1 out of every 2 U.S. internet users.
That's fantastic. Where did this thing get its start from, David?
Well, like most good ideas, it started in a college apartment with ASU bikini calendar, because that's where most good ideas come from. And so my senior year had a crazy idea, kind of create a ASU bikini calendar. We gave these out for free to students, and we would sell advertising to the local businesses. For some reason, a lot of people like to look at girls on a website, so we had a really popular website with millions of eyeballs, and I had no idea how to monetize it. And that's when I got introduced to my partner Chris in this company. And at that time, this is mid 2000, about 2005, 2006, and it was kind of really the beginning of ad tech. And we got really good just kind of self-teaching ourselves how to implement an ad server and really start driving up the price of this auction. And then we had a lot of other friends in the space that owned websites, and they were asking for help, and we would just tell them what to do. And it was one of those moments where we realized there was a much bigger opportunity out there than just the bikini calendar business, and that there was really a need for publishers that are great at producing content but don't necessarily know how to maximize the value really of that audience.
So a nice clear path then. Any pivots along the way? Any mistakes?
Plenty of mistakes, plenty of pivots, and even a wine bar that I opened in between there. So a really, I guess, unique path, but there's, plenty of mistakes. I think been on the witness stand like this.
Tell the story about how Freestar actually started in a completely different manner. Actually.
Sure. So when we discovered a newer technology, and if any of you guys really want to get bored one night, look up header bidding, and that's kind of this technology that has propelled what programmatic advertising has become. And my partner and I discovered that, and it was a moment where we said, hey, let's go out, raise a couple dollars from friends and family, and just buy websites and flip them like real estate. And went out, and basically not a lot of people in this town like things other than real estate to invest in, I found out. And a couple people gave us some money. We acquired 9 sites. We raised $700,000, and we spent $550,000 on 9 websites. And in the first basically 2 to 3 months, my partner and I almost killed each other because we were fighting over content and just the direction of where the editorial should go. And the reality is we're both awful at it. We have no idea. So we basically ran out of money, and we're literally weeks away from just shutting down. And we decided to pivot. And at that moment, we said, let's go do what we do best, which is really maximize the revenue opportunity for other publishers, not own the assets, not try to be everything and create this great editorial that we're just have no experience in. And from that moment on, it's really been obviously a crazy ride for us and exceptional growth.
So I joined the company in January after they had done all the amazing work that won the Inc. 5000 #1 spot this year. So I have to ask, when you're a growing company, obviously growing the company from 100 grand to 37 million, why did you hire me? I mean, that's a general question, like why would anyone hire me, I guess, but
Sure.
why did you know at that point in time, maybe we should bring somebody else in?
Well, we actually tried to hire Kurt a few times over the years, and he kept turning me down. But being
Best
persistent,
BD guy in the business, he sells.
being persistent, I think it's a matter of knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And currently we're almost at 50 employees, have never run a company of more than 3. And I know what I'm really good at, and Kurt is an exceptional kind of complement to a lot of my weaknesses and structures and processes, and really being able to take us from that startup to really growth phase. I know I couldn't just do that alone, or we have an amazing team, but needed someone really next to me to help me guide that in the right direction and have that same tenacity that I feel that I bring every day as well.
Good. How many hole-in-ones do you have?
0.
All right, I guess we can turn the tables here a little bit, and I'll take my grilling now.
I wasn't prepared for this, so I guess, we obviously had a lot of conversations over time, but curious what finally put you over the edge to take a risk. You corporate law, you have a great background, you had a comfortable job, took a company public, but it's crazy to take a leap to some startup here in the desert.
I think it's actually following through on what you said you were going to do. And when I met you guys 3 or 4 years ago, you had this crazy idea that seemed like it was good. You had already kind of gone through that pivot and were pretty committed to it. And then whenever you check in, you had really done that next milestone. And we're so passionate about it and doing things the right way, treating people the right way. I knew from the employees that I used to work with that then worked with you, that passion was instilled in the organization and that there weren't shortcuts being taken. I truly believe that if you do the right thing, you treat people the right way, you're going to get good outcomes out of that. Treat your employees right, and you get customer service that's truly world class. The rest of it kind of takes care of itself, and you guys are doing that.
And what surprised you the most so far?
Like any growth company or startup, there's the things that the foundation isn't quite right, and I knew I was coming into some of that, but we completely redid accounting, for instance, this year. It was amazing you can get a company that big without necessarily knowing your numbers. I do think that's something the bankers talked about a little bit, but really understand your business from all the angles. You can make decisions based on whims, but when you really have that data behind it, it's important. And even to this day, there's additional insights we wish we had. So try to build that into the culture from the outset, making very data-driven decisions as soon as you possibly can, I think is key to that scalability and the transfer of knowledge when people come on board.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I just want to drill down. So Freestar is in the publishing business, but in a very esoteric part of the publishing business. It's behind the scenes. It's every time there's an ad placed on a website, Freestar is hopefully will be there. Can you talk about how that works with the share or the risk that you take out of your for your clients? Can you talk about that very specific transaction behind the scenes and what you guys do?
Sure. So ad technology changes about every 3 months. And the way that ads are sold, David kind of mentioned it, but there's real-time auctions happening in milliseconds. And there's demand from 20, 30 different partners, and you're always maximizing who is in that header bidding stack and doing that. As you can imagine, trying to build commercial relationships, if you're a smaller business, a publisher, you've got a few people, it's tough to be both a great content creator and an ad tech company and be doing the revenue generation side of it. You also aren't going to probably get the best terms from folks. So we take care of aggregating demand across 20, 30 different bidders all the time. We collect all the checks, take some of the risk of collecting all that AR, and then write people a single check at the end of the month or whenever their payment is due that just simplifies their lives pretty significantly and really gives them the scale to have a world-class ad tech monetization engine behind them that they just otherwise could never have themselves.
So currently, most of your clients are either doing it themselves, right?
They were attempting to previously or working with a competitor of ours, and we have obviously brought them into ours. So we take all of that off their plate. I guess to kind of simplify this a little bit, because I know it's a pretty different part of the internet most people don't understand, but I'll put myself in when I had my website. You basically go to Google and you sign up for an AdSense account. You put that in your site and you make some money. It's kind of the equivalent of selling a car at the car auction, and there's only one person that's interested in bidding in that. And really, what this header bidding technology we're referring to is every time you go to a website, a request is going out, and we're getting, in most cases, about 15 to 20 different companies competing for that and taking that highest value and then feeding it into what's referred to as an ad server to kind of display that ad. So that's how kind of that entire process works. Along the way, I mean, if you think about that, you need to establish relationships with all these different companies. A lot of them don't want to work with smaller companies, so we can get them access. And then also just receiving payments. Some of these people are net 30, 60, 90, whatever their payment terms may be. And it becomes just kind of a daunting task from even just an accounting perspective, especially for a small business, even up to larger ones, to collect that. So really simplifying that and then kind of giving them a world-class analytics dashboard to really understand their content, where revenue is coming from, and what type of content they're producing is actually generating the most amount of revenue.
I think an interesting point probably for some of the companies in the room that have a solution that potentially could replace somebody internally. There's sometimes fear about that if I sign up for this, I'm basically hiring something and getting rid of my own job there. We really pitch ourselves as kind of an extension of their team, a force multiplier for them, where often they'll know, I want to go do this thing. They don't have the team to do it. You really make them look incredible inside of their own companies and make them more efficient so they can do some of those higher value things that were talked about on the mind-body side, some of those things. So make sure that you're positioning yourself as a benefit to the person, not necessarily replacing things. And I think that helps. It goes a long way on the sales side.
Absolutely.
Are you currently working through any ad agencies like a Big Yam or one of those?
So we're not typically a Big Yam will go and spend their money with a company that will be connected to us.
Okay.
So
We're more the pipes in certain ways, where we take the last mile, if you will, to the website.
Can you talk about, I know Vegas.com and a few others that I saw. Can you talk about some of your recent clients you're working with?
yeah, so most recently brought on JCPenney, and on the e-commerce side, that's going to be a big initiative of us moving forward here into 2020. We always talk about this in the office. In e-commerce, you have to get someone to the site, into the shopping cart, to then sell a product, check out, and make a 30, 40, 50% margin. And with ad revenue, it's 100% margin, and you're generating revenue on every single person that's coming to your site. So you can take a lot of that ad revenue and put that back into customer acquisition and drive more people to your site. So that we just launched with them this month, and it's been off to a fantastic start and really an exciting kind of new area for us in e-commerce. And then we'll be going live next week with Warner Music and some of the sites that they own. There's Fortune Magazine, and then there's a whole part of the internet that is just amazing, solitaire websites and sites that do hundreds of thousands of dollars that you've never heard of a month in revenue, and just really, for the most part, all these people are typically very passionate about what they're writing about, whether it's movies or sports or gardening, and we come in and just allow them to focus even more on that. And typically, the increase of revenue is pretty drastic, and it allows them to start hiring more and more staff to create more content and really build their business. So from an entrepreneur, and we talk about this all the time, one of the most rewarding things is watching companies that, in our early days especially, they're like, well, we'll give you a shot because we have nothing to lose. We're firing everyone. We're laying everyone off. And now they're hiring new staff and really, supporting dozens of more families and mortgages every month through their sites.
Yeah, we talked about that last night. I want to talk about we talked about at dinner last night, we talked about the universe coming together and how everything kind of sort of collides and brings this into one place for you to be there at the right time, at the right place. It also stretches you in really specific ways. Can you talk about how this experience for you, Kurt, and then you, David, has stretched you in really specific ways, maturity as a leader in the business, and really the first way in response to the good things and the bad things, and then vulnerability with the team and the people
Sure.
around you, and then the last one, and your style of leadership. So can you speak to those three things?
A lot to unpack there for sure.
Yeah.
Coming into the business, there was portions of the culture that maybe weren't as good as they could be. And so we really doubled down on that, of instilling this customer first mentality, and came from getting the team kind of right and gathered around that idea. But we focus on NPS as a way to measure customer service, but we really have just honed in on that and hired to that. And it's become just this kind of guiding force for our company, that if we do the right thing by people, it's going to kind of keep going. And if you get your customers to be your salespeople for you, you've just expanded your sales force by that much. I try to lead by positivity. We really focus on the good things. Of course, there's times when you got to talk to people about some things that maybe aren't going quite right, but anything you do to keep people feeling like they're getting, whether it's a quick win, a big win, that's a good thing. And we do that through pretty serious transparency. We share on an almost weekly basis where we stand on revenue. Where is our NPS score? We actually have the NPS score piped into our Slack channel, and it's become certainly my favorite Slack channel, seeing the whole company rally around that anytime we get feedback, good, bad, or ugly. I honestly don't give a shit what the NPS score is, but when I get a paragraph back about something, and then my team all dives on that, and there's a 19 reply thread after that, you can tell that people care and that we're gonna go do the right thing. Even before I got there, they'd instilled 3 really good values in the company. Publisher first, it's more than kind of our tagline. Any decision we make, unless it's got the publisher first, we're not gonna go do that. It's gonna hurt us in the long run. We only make money when they make money. We had somebody new join the company, they're like, well, if we did this, we can make an extra point. And to a person, everybody in the senior meeting just shushed them and said, no, that's not the way we do things. That was a very proud moment for me that value was so instilled. We review our values every month. Another one is we, not me. We make people think like an owner. You know, that's not your trash on the floor, my trash on the floor. That's our trash on the floor. Let's go make sure that we're doing that together, and allowing failure and celebrating failure in certain ways. I'll let you tell the wonderful story about that. But as long as people are living by the value, making those decisions, we're going to applaud failure. What I'm not going to applaud is somebody watching the plane crash into the mountain. That's the way to get yourself fired the next day. If you see somebody screwing up and you don't raise your hand, I'm going to go ballistic. And I'm fairly level-headed at the office, not on the golf course, at the office. And then our third value is above and beyond, and we've just got a culture of greatness, and people are always striving to do the right thing and holding each other accountable to that. And so I was very happy to inherit that, but as part of kind of building this new team, it's a remote team. We've got about 20 people here in town, about 10 or 11 in New York, 6 or 7 in LA, and the rest are spread all across the country, which remote employees have their own challenges, but if you really have the culture and you get intentional about it, we fly every new employee into one of our offices. I've got this sort of theory that some of you have probably heard me say, but if you have a beer with somebody, it's hard to be mad at them. So you get that Slack message, and you're like, you maybe get the tone wrong. Once you've had a beer with somebody, you know them, you're going to take that the right way, and they're just asking you a question, and you need that. So for anybody that has remote employees, make sure you're dedicating the resources, frankly, to building human relationships up front. It's going to pay dividends down the road. We fly our whole company in twice a year. It's not the cheapest thing on earth, but the benefits we get out of the camaraderie and the trust that people have on a cross-departmental basis just far outweigh any cost you have there. And what was the last part of the question? Just that leadership style.
Yeah.
Being very nurturing and open and honest and trying to listen. My wife probably would have never said I was a good listener, but you've told me I'm a good listener, which is a new thing for me, apparently. But I did when I started. I went and interviewed every single employee and heard what they knew, because they knew a hell of a lot more about this business than I did, right? And then I just went back, 6-9 months later and did my second round of one-on-ones with everybody. And it was interesting how certain things changed. Certain things had stayed the same, but you get real insights from the people that are out on the front lines doing the things. As much as he and I are up late at night talking about this, that, or the other thing, we don't know what's going on in each individual group or each individual office and those things. So it takes a while, but spend the time to really get to know each of your employees as a person, because they'll give you such good feedback along the way.
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of people have asked about the key to success, and it's publicly knowledge now, but we did $37 million last year with essentially 25 employees, and people are like, how do you do so much with so little? And I think people get too caught up sometimes on numbers of people and quantity. For us, it's been a quality game since day one. I think most people worth hiring probably have a job, so we've gone out and really tried to poach a lot of the top talent and people that you just can't replicate. You can fake a lot of things in this world. You can't fake experience, and we've gone after and solidified that. And then I think the next key is really, if you're going to bring in and spend the time and money getting those people, allow them to. You hired them for a reason, so allow them to do what they do best. And to Kurt's point, the story that we always talk about in our company in the early days, Andy, who was our first employee, took a massive pay cut because he believed in us, and our ad server is kind of our scorecard. You can see all of our revenue in there. And he was scared. He had a family, took a job here, and he wasn't sure if we could pay him in the other days. 6 months after he started, he told me the first day he checked the ad server, he went home and cried to his wife. And he's like, I made the worst mistake, honey. They can't afford to pay me. There's no money in this company. And even though he didn't tell me this till later, I kept telling him every day, don't worry, Andy, we're going to make this happen. We're going to make this happen. Well, fast forward about 1.5 years later, Andy did the impossible. He took down Google's entire ad server across Google, which is to this day an amazing feat. The bad news is it cost us $250,000 in a pretty short time. And he came up to me literally in tears, being like, I know.
And he doesn't cry this much, actually.
No, but there's been 2 times. So he's like, I know you're going to fire me. I just cost us $250,000. So what happened, we went through all of it. And he does everything with the best intentions. And it wasn't my happiest moment as an owner. But fast forward to this past summer, his 3-year anniversary, we had our summer retreat up in Prescott. And as great as Andy is, he is a Packers fan. But besides that, we celebrated that success with a Packers jersey and his nickname, which is now $250,000, in front of the entire company. And I think it just showed to everyone that, hey, if you make a mistake that big and you're actually being celebrated, then when you make a little mistake, raise your hand, ask for help. The we not me isn't just about trash, even though it is at times, but it's also, you made a mistake, everyone's here to help you, and there's no egos in our company from top to bottom. We've truly some brilliant people, and I think just empowering them to really become their own entrepreneur within your organization. I've made plenty of mistakes. It hasn't cost us the company, and even at Andy's level or other people's, nothing's going to kill this company. We're stronger than that, but let's just learn from it and never repeat it.
Yeah, one of the things it's been a reoccurring theme today, and I think in our last summit as well, is that people ask all the time, if I get this, or we get to EBITDA, we're going to be this, or we're going to be that, and we can sell. Do you know why businesses grow? And do you know why my private equity colleagues here, you know why private equity companies buy companies? Because they're great companies. That's the only reason, right? There's all that other stuff, right? But building a great company is the most valuable thing you could do for your company. And that's basically what you've done. You said that your customer service has become essentially your greatest sales force. Can you speak to that in the tech industry now? I think there's a lot less focus on customer service.
Sure, there definitely is. In the early days, we were obsessed with just getting clients. People want to ask who you work with. It's tough when you say, well, 2 sites. So we just went after anyone and everyone under the sun. And a year ago, right before we brought in Kurt, we were signing up businesses like crazy. We were also losing them like crazy. We had 50% churn a year ago. And it was a reflection moment. It doesn't matter how great our business development team is. If we can't keep customers happy, we're obviously just treading water and wasting everyone's time. So we took a step back and started to break down our customers into tiers. We were treating everyone, whether you're doing $5,000 a month or $100,000 to $300,000 a month, essentially the same. Whoever cried the most got the most attention. And we broke them down into tiers and established different service levels for them. And also at that time, put this NPS's Net Promoter Score, and basically how likely are you to recommend Freestar or whatever company to a friend. And that's become the heartbeat of the company. And we talk about this all the time, and I know Zappos was brought up earlier. We look at ourselves as a customer service company that is exceptional at ad tech. And now from literally last October until today, we haven't lost a client. So we could put a complete stop in that, but we were investing in the wrong places last year, trying to chase shiny objects, basically reinvent the internet. And we started, instead of kind of spreading that vision across everywhere there was potentially an opportunity, invested it really in our customer service team and our yield managers, and now have established this real bond between all of our publishers where not only do they not leave us, but when competitors reach out to them, they're forwarding us their emails and just saying, can you make these guys go away?
I have my sort of normal 10 questions that I ask sort of all successful people. What are you doing now that you believe you need to do more of?
I think getting the team in place earlier. At times, it's tough to bite it off, but every hire we've made or getting the right person in the right chair at the right time has upgraded the business as a whole. We made a change in our sales leadership team. I put David back in his place, and I just fired him this week when we hired a new VP of publisher development, and she's an absolute pro. And it's just very clear the moment you get the right person in that seat how they're going to elevate people. And so while it may be a little scary, the cost may be a little bit more than you want, typically the really good people pay for themselves, and it's worth hiring a little bit earlier or punching a little above your weight class when you can.
I would agree with that. For us right now, I think it's just really a matter of doing more of the same and kind of repeating that. We were all over the place in early days, like most startups, just chasing. And I think now that we've stayed really focused. And the bigger we grow, I think it's equally as important to kind of double down on being even more focused on a daily basis and not listen to the outside noise or chase other ideas, and stay true to your own kind of values. And that's something that we've, I think, in the early days, we made up our core values because you have to, and that one sounded good and that one sounded good, and no one could repeat them, myself included. And that was another kind of reflection point, was like, we need to be able to live these on a daily basis and now hold everyone accountable. And Kurt has done an exceptional job of just bringing the entire team together and making sure that everyone's really rowing in the same direction every single day.
I want to pick up on something somebody mentioned earlier about the bullseye and knowing where you sit. A theme that you guys had kind of kicked off even before I got there was back to basics. Let's not go try to reinvent the entire internet and chase this shiny object, which happens in startup mode, but figure out the thing that you're the best at and truly be absolutely world-class at that one thing. Eventually, you can get to the point where you can move maybe one swim lane over and start selling popcorn in stores. I mean, I think that's a really interesting shift there, and that's kind of what the e-commerce space is, or our app business. We had not done a ton in apps. We've built SDKs, so we can now do that in app. But that's one swim lane over. It's not 6 swim lanes over. So make sure that you're really the very best at the thing that you can actually win at. And I think that's easy to forget when you're brainstorming products. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. Well, yeah, is there another company that's sole focus at doing that and they've got 10 engineers working on it? That's probably not the right path to go tackle on your own if you've got something that you can be the best at.
What do you think is the thing you need to do less of?
It's an interesting question.
That's a great question.
Stump.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah, let me think about that one
Yeah.
for a second.
We'll do that at happy hour over a beer.
Yeah, most challenging.
I will. I can say that is making sure you've got a real product owner for anything versus the diffusion of responsibility that happens when there's a great idea that involves a bunch of different teams, but there's not one single person that owns it. Yeah. It's easy for that ball to fall in the middle of the infield, and even though everybody's damn good at catching baseballs, if nobody really owns it and is calling for it, you're going to have an issue. And we've had that happen at times. We just brought on a new head of product, but even now we don't have that quite fleshed out. And it happened in this last week where something great was done, but the baton just wasn't handed off, or the person knew that it was their turn to run with it. So making sure you've got a product owner.
Yeah. Greatest sales objection, because revenues matter, right? So greatest sales objection.
Our entire industry is just around, everyone's been burned and there's a lot of bad actors. So it's just, I've heard this story before. What makes you really different? And that's the daily objection I really come up against. And I think once we lay out not just our vision and kind of this Inc. award has been that, as we refer to, like that good housekeeping seal of approval that we are legit, but just point to our team. And like I said before, you can't fake that experience. And when you can put that amount of talent under one roof working on your behalf as a publisher, it's truly unmatched.
Just in terms of currency, what has greater currency? Your salespeople or your customer service?
Customer service for sure. I mean, keeping an existing client is a lot cheaper than going to get new ones. I think we all know that, and I think the word gets around about your customer service. I was stepping in from a sales role at something a couple weeks ago, and a woman asked me, she's like, I've asked all your customers, I've interviewed more than you realize, like, where's the downfall? And I had a specific thing that we weren't that great at, but she'd actually gone and done her research with the customers. And anybody, particularly in a larger account that you're going to try to win, is or should be doing that diligence. And if you can deliver for your existing customers, they really become the extension of your team that you need to be successful in the long run.
Less focus on sales team and more focus on customer service. How many times did you almost quit?
0.
That's also why I love this guy. Nobody's gonna outwork him, and there's very few people that match my level of tenacity and passion, and one of them sitting right next to me. And I would say, if you're finding a co-founder or whatever it is, make sure you can match that energy level and keep up with each other. And when you're looking for people on your team, find people that are curious and that you could just see are ready to run through a wall, even if they aren't necessarily qualified for the specific thing. If you know that there's potential there, sometimes it's worth. I know I said hire above your weight class at times. I think that's a little more on the senior level. If there's somebody more junior that you just know has that tenacity, we literally hired the guy that sold him his car. Because if you can sell this guy a car, he's bound to be good, and he's already closed hundreds of thousands of dollars of deals in his first 2 months because he had that tenacity and that willingness to learn and things.
Yeah, that's awesome. So should, in your opinion, you've done this, you've been through, you've done a few. Look, I think it's easier to get, my own opinion, it's easier to get equity when you're in revenues. Should you be chasing equity, or should you be finding a way to drive revenues sooner?
For us, it's just been driving revenue. I think we have the luxury that when we want to make a decision, we make it. We don't need to ask for help or forgiveness or anything else under the sun. And it's been a slow and even though the growth has been insane, it's been a kind of a slow and steady build in the beginning where I think if we had a big pile of cash, we just would have burned even more and made even worse decisions. So it kept us just very focused on trying to figure out what works. And once we figure that out, just put the foot down on the gas pedal and go.
I think it's somewhat unique in Arizona. We always talk about the funding gap being here. I think at times, while it's not great there isn't as much capital, access to capital, it also makes you be a bit of a better business where you're not growing for the sake of growth because you don't have unlimited capital, and you have to be a little more thoughtful at times. So while we need to fix that and certainly get more money coming in here, raising every possible penny you can just to have said that you've done it or whatever isn't necessarily going to lead to the best decisions. So I think that's can be a blessing in disguise at times.
Best advice you received so far?
I mean, I think it's just sort of the golden rule: do unto others you want them to do unto you more than anything. And if you treat people right, from your employees to your clients, it's going to come full circle. I genuinely mean that. There are no shortcuts. You got to just do the right thing by people.
Worst advice?
Wow. I mean, I see a lot of people kind of just chasing growth for the sake of growth. Not all revenue is created equal, and I think it's better to build a good, solid, profitable business unless you've got an industry where you can truly revolutionize it and take so much market share that it's worth buying revenue at all costs, being terribly unprofitable. I think chasing revenue for the sake of it and growth at all costs is really bad advice.
I think also it's just trusting your own instincts. I think people just listen too much to other people, and if they really knew what they were doing, they would have done it. So there's a lot of brilliant people out there, and fortunate enough where Tim Crown from Insight, who invested in us, has become a huge mentor, and I love being a sponge and absorbing that. But at the end of the day, I think the other thing I really benefit and appreciate at him is he just asks questions. He never tells us what to do, and it's more of that guiding principle. So, I mean, I think any entrepreneur is crazy enough to go start this on their own. Don't listen to really too many outside voices.
Yeah. I have two more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience. We'll take some questions, and then we'll go to happy hour. So what do you got?
Yeah, the unenviable position of sitting on stage when everybody wants drinks. No patent here from the recovering attorney. No patent. And revenue really is still my favorite KPI. For better or worse, revenue cures a lot of ills. Maybe not all ills, but if you got things going up into the right on that side of things, and of course managing the cost. But revenue and NPS are our two KPIs that we stare at, share with the company, and kind of obsess over.
Sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on your we, not me principle that you have in your business. I think that's really smart. How do you intend on, and do you intend on keeping that in place as your management becomes more decentralized as you grow?
It's something we celebrate every month. We do an all-hands meeting every single month that is very transparent. We go through everything, but then the closing couple slides are living our values. And we have primarily our senior team, but we give examples of people living those values every single month, and they get an award for that. They get entered into the holiday party raffles and things for that, and then an employee of the month after that. But we really are instilling it on a regular basis. We've got a compliments channel also in our Slack. That it's another one of my favorite things, and it's people, no matter where they are in the organization, complimenting other people, and oftentimes it is about specifically living that value, hashtagged in the Slack channel. And so it's really just woven into the fabric of the business. And if anybody's not doing those things, very nicely, people nudge them back in the right direction.
I would also say it's part of, I think, the hiring process. I think, there's givers and takers in this world, and through that process, making sure that you're hiring people that are going to, be part of a team, and it's not about them or that single person getting that credit. And just to go back to the KPI question, I mean, my favorite KPI is just our customer success and that feedback we get from them, because to the point of business development or anything else, without satisfied customers and truly delivering on that, I don't think you have a real business.
Sir?
David, what were some of the key indicators at the moment in time where you decided you needed to bring on Kurt? What were some of the things that were giving you signals, and what made you ultimately make that move?
That's a hell of a question. And to be honest, one of them is just my partner and I, maybe him being more on the tech focused side, myself on the business development. And I think part of our success is really looking at things completely differently and challenging each other on a daily basis. And I think it got to the point where, like I said before, we just didn't have the experience of taking this to that next level. And could I figure it out? Probably. I've overcome some challenges, but also why not bring someone in that whenever I talked to anyone that knew Kurt, it was just clear of what you see is what you get, and just an opportunity to get someone like that. I think it's like even in professional sports, right? You might have a great team, but if there's an amazing player available, you're a fool if you don't jump on it at that moment. And after 3 years of borderline harassing this guy to come over, the fact that he finally cracked, I knew that I just had to jump on that moment, and it's been literally the best decision I've made.
And it's been the most fulfilling 9 months of my career, and I truly have gained a best friend out of this deal too. And finding people that you can work with and enjoy spending that much time with is important, because I think we're common law married in some states right now. How much time we spend together and the late nights discussions and everything. So if you're thinking about bringing on a partner, and that goes, I think, even with raising capital, if it's people that you don't necessarily jive with, you're going to end up spending more time with that person than you realize. So make sure there's a good relationship on a personal side from the outset, because that'll smooth over some rough edges down the road if you need to, or just keep things running smoothly along the way.
Sir?
Where do you see Freestar 10 years from today?
Good question.
In ad tech, it's tough to look much more than about 6 months out. We've got an idea what the next 18 to 24 months looks like, I think, in terms of some of the products we're going to roll out. I mean, realistically, I wouldn't be surprised if the company gets acquired at some point in time. It's growing like crazy. You know, we'll do another 50% plus growth this year, on pace to do the same next year. So just given the nature of our industry, that wouldn't be surprising. I mean, we're reaching pretty critical mass right now, but there's a few folks that, if they picked us up from a data standpoint, it would be pretty unbelievable to reach, and maybe even rival a Facebook or a Google. So we're becoming a more and more useful asset every day. Like David said, we reach 1 out of 2 U.S. internet users right now, and you start creeping that one up, and it's pretty interesting for somebody.
We have a few more. Sir?
As you guys have grown, you said like in the beginning you just kind of grabbed whatever you could. Have you changed the model of like who your ideal customer is? And you know, I know you said you've tiered them into service levels, but do you get more selective, or is it still, hey, whoever comes who fits kind of the broader profile we'll work with?
Sure. Great question there. So, I mean, we've definitely become a lot more selective, and I think that's, it's the great part once you start having kind of that growth and really great clients, is you can start choosing a little bit more. And I think it's also a matter of, and choosing isn't just because they're a ton of revenue, because a ton of revenue and a huge pain in the ass still isn't a great mix there. So making sure that what I ask of all of my team on their own sales calls is what defines success for that publisher, making sure that these goals are aligned, right? When I've talked to guys that were doing 30 grand a month, and I ask them that, and they're like, well, we want to be doing 120,000 by next month. And I was like, well, instead of that, why don't you give me your stockbroker's name, because I would love to have those returns. And he's like, well, that's actually a good point. And I'm like, can we get to some of those levels? Probably, and we've had that success. But I also, to one of the questions earlier, like the biggest objection is our industry is notorious for overpromising and under-delivering. So we try not to, write any checks that we can't cash, and really making sure that, yes, the size is important from a revenue standpoint, so there's an ROI. Our employees going after great talent are expensive, but also that they're going to be the right partner.
I think that's important. Don't underestimate that. And in your early days, you got to go chase any client you can. At some point, I think you get to the maturity of, much like the bullseye thing on what you should be doing as a business, who really is that right customer. We've carved out our niche sort of in the enterprise side of things. There's other people, sort of frenemies of ours, that do it a lot more in the long tail, and they're great at that. And in fact, we'll refer folks over that way because it's just going to be a better fit for them. But even on the temperament side, literally in our CRM, we have temperament as one of the things that we track of this client. And if we just think the pain in the ass factor is going to be too high, we won't do it. It's just not worth doing it. It burns so many cycles for your team when they could be doing so many more productive things. And, you know, we've got the luxury of being profitable and growing like crazy, but don't be afraid to say no sometimes. There's, again, not all revenue is created equal. And if it's just going to be too much of a time suck for your team, it's just not worth it.
You mentioned Tim Irwin last night, the blog.
Tim Urban.
Urban,
Do
sorry.
you guys read Wait But Why? Anybody in here? It's one of the best blogs out there.
Yeah, so I looked him up last night.
Oh, yeah.
After our conversation. Book or blog you'd recommend?
That truly is my favorite. Wait But Why? I think How I Built This podcast, it's not one of those, but on my commute every day I listen to that. I think it's fascinating to hear the stories of entrepreneurs that have been through so many things. I think the host, Guy Raz, does a very nice job of drawing those out. So I think that's a good business sort of tool for things, but Wait But Why is fascinating.
How I Built This, I love as well. It was the first podcast I listened to a couple months ago. I was never listening, and he got turned on and try to listen to that every morning on the way to work. And from a book perspective, Never Split the Difference. It's a former FBI negotiator, and it's hands down the greatest sales book I've ever read, and just I think a fascinating from a psychology standpoint too of really when you're handling life and death literally situations as a negotiator and how you kind of come out of a lot of those situations. I think you can apply that to a lot of different things, and I'm unfortunately not a huge reader, but that was a book I literally couldn't put down.
I'm kind of a dork. Anything you can do, like behavioral psychology, organizational behavior stuff, is going to help so much. Like Dan Airley, Thaler, and some of those guys, they write just amazing things and do it in a very accessible way that I think is good to sort of put yourself in other people's shoes sometimes, or how can you nudge them to make the right decision when it feels like their own, and you're going to get a lot more of that when it's their decision.
Yeah.
I would also just add that I've had a few people that try to take every single page from a book and apply it directly to their business, and I would just like to recommend take what's right for you or some highlights, but not all of their words are necessarily gospel that you need to go apply to your business.
Any more questions? Ladies and gentlemen, Freestar, David and Kurt. I'm going to ask Ryan Smeets to come here. David, Kurt, stay here. We've got a surprise for you.
All right, so I've gotten to know you guys a little bit over the last couple months, and gotten to share in the success with you guys. And last week, got to see the banquet, which was the Inc. 5000, and how gracious you guys were in receiving that award on stage with 5,000 plus people in the room. So I wanted to memorialize that and say how proud of you guys we are that, one, you'd share your success here today in Arizona, but two, we wanted to visualize that for you. So our team here at Big YAM put this gift together. Robert, if you would. We have 4,999 Red Hots in a glass container, and then at the top we have a fake jalapeno that we think signifies the Freestar green. And you already earned a big check. We're going to give this to to you, Mr. Friedman. So enjoy for you and your team.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Ryan. This has been amazing.
If you haven't had a chance to spend time with Ryan, please make sure you do. He's fantastic, and Robert's well. Like, the people bringing this Arizona tech community together has been so much fun. A big part of me coming back was helping. I wanted to help build the Arizona tech, and seeing it truly happen in events like these are the things we need to start continually competing on a national scale. So thank you all for coming, taking time out of your day to do this. It's fantastic.
I'd like to just echo that for a second. Ryan's hands down one of the most incredible people I've ever met. Truly, in just a few months of getting to know him, and I think we're all lucky that he's put in so much effort to bring together a community out here in Arizona. And your hard work, I know this wasn't easy to put together, but really honored to be here today, and thanks for everything that you're doing.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks to these entrepreneurs here in the room.
Yes.
I'd like